Welcome to my channel.
In this section, you get to read and see little pictures of the original treatment of a bug's life.
This is the very first step that we take before we go into the script writing and the storyboarding and all that other stuff. This is where you try to encapsulate the whole tone of the movie, sort of what you're shooting for, and this is what we pitched to Disney, basically.
Oh, you remember that day that they came up?
Yeah, it was actually the day after my daughter was born.
Wow, that long ago.
I know, 16 years ago.
She's that, huh? She was older. Okay, happy reading.
Once, there was a peaceful colony of ants who would labor all summer collecting food for the coming winter. One day, an alarm sounded, and the ants scurried to hide the food they'd been harvesting. An evil gang of grasshoppers then descended upon the colony, in a horde so thick they blackened the sky. Their leader, Hopper, appeared before the trembling ants and said, "Lucky for us, you ants work so hard. Tell you what, we'll do our usual deal. You keep collecting that food, and we'll come back after the first winter frost to take it. In return, we'll let you live." With a hideous laugh, he and his gang flew back into the sky. The Ant Queen was tired of being bullied by these grasshoppers. She advised the colony to send 2 scouts to find strong, brave bugs who could help defend them. The Queen's daughter, Princess Ada, thought this idea too risky. If it failed, it would only anger the grasshoppers. But she was overruled, and the scouts left the colony in search of the greatest warriors in all bugdom. They went to Bug City, where P.T. Flea's circus happened to be in town. Red, the ringmaster, soaked up the spotlight and announced the performers. A ladybug family acrobatic team, followed by a praying mantis magician with his lovely gypsy moth assistant. A giant ferocious rhino beetle. A stick bug and clown. A black widow spider high wire act. And the grand finale, a pair of pill bugs being shot from a cannon. It was a great show, but sadly, they couldn't even draw flies. That night, P.T. Flea was forced to shut down the circus. With nowhere else to go, the heartbroken troupe went to the local bug bar to drown their sorrows. The 2 scouts from the colony were there, trying to hire a tough-looking wasp. Red listened in, and then rushed back to tell the others. "These ants want to hire a team of warriors to protect their colony from a gang of grasshoppers," he said. "We could pose as those warriors." That didn't sound like a good idea to his friends. They were performers, not fighters. So Red said, "We don't have to fight anybody. After we're fat and well-rested, we'll hightail it out of there before the grasshoppers return." Having no other options, the troupe reluctantly agreed to Red's idea. They marched up and performed such fierce-looking stunts that the scouts hired them on the spot. Back at the anthill, the troupe arrived to a hero's welcome. Never had they performed in front of such a huge audience, and they were won over by the enthusiastic crowd. The only one who wasn't excited to see them was Princess Ada. Even Red's smooth talk couldn't win her over. But the bugs were allowed to stay, and the next day they began their charade by putting the colony through mock training exercises. The poor ants sincerely believed that they were being trained by professional warriors. But as time passed, the troupe grew fond of their ant comrades, impressed with their sense of community and hard work. And once she saw the effect that Red and his friends had on her colony, Princess Ada softened. In fact, her animosity slowly turned into adoration, and Red, against his better judgment, found himself falling thorax over abdomen in love. Weeks turned into months, and before anyone knew it, autumn had come to a close. One morning, the circus bugs awoke to the first frost of winter. Red knew this meant Hopper and his gang would return at any moment. Much as they hated to leave their new friends, the troupe gathered their belongings and tiptoed to the front gate. But they were too late. The frightening buzz of the grasshoppers came roaring over the field. Hopper appeared out of nowhere, stopping the circus bugs in their tracks. "Well, who do we have here?" he said. Before Red could answer, one of the ants yelled, "They're the bugs that are gonna kick your butt, Hopper!" Red wanted to look brave in front of Princess Ada, so instead of begging for his life, he said, "That's right, Hoppity. And don't think it's just us you have to get past. You've got an entire army of ants to reckon with." The grasshoppers were confronted by a wall of seemingly confident and agile warriors. Unprepared for resistance, they flew away. The entire colony cheered, and that night they held a party in honor of the courageous warriors who had saved them. But Red was feeling guilty. He knew his lies had put the ants in danger, so he decided to tell Princess Ada the truth. Before he could say anything, who should appear but P.T. Flea, the circus manager. "There you are," he shouted. "They told me in town I could find you here. I got us a gig. We're a circus again." A long silence fell over the party. The Queen was furious. They had all been fooled into thinking they could defend themselves with a circus routine. She banished the imposters, and the troupe slinked after P.T. Flea into the night. The Queen then returned to her chambers. She was so upset she didn't notice that her guards weren't at their posts. Suddenly, Hopper and his henchmen jumped out of the shadows. "You didn't think you could scare us off that easily," he said. "The colony's helpless without its queen. Now that I have you at my side, your ants will do whatever I say." Hopper's henchmen grabbed the queen and carried her off to their camp. The rest of the gang quickly invaded the anthill. Princess Ada saw a chance to escape. She knew what she had to do. She caught up with the troop and told them, "I don't care if you are just circus bugs. You gave us confidence and showed us what we can do as a team. With your help, we can still save the colony." Red and his friends knew they had to try. They returned to find the anthill crawling with grasshoppers. Ants were being forced to carry food into the grasshoppers' camp, where the ant queen was being held hostage. From their hiding place, the troop overheard two guards plotting. As soon as the ants finished delivering the food, the entire colony and their queen would be killed. Red had a bold idea for how to save the queen. He disguised himself as a colony ant, while the others hid themselves in the food that the ants were carrying up the hill. They made their way into the camp, where the grasshoppers were gorging themselves as Hopper taunted the queen. Red, still in disguise, scurried into the middle of the camp and shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, bugs of all ages, presenting the world's greatest flea circus!" Right on cue, the bugs jumped out of the food and launched into their old circus routines. Hopper and his gang were taken completely by surprise. Manto the Magnificent promised the audience that he would make the queen disappear before their very eyes. He threw a cloth over her cage, and when he whisked it away, she was gone. The grasshoppers applauded, but Hopper was enraged. Before he could react, Red shouted, "Now!" And the harmless circus stunts turned into a ferocious attack. Inspired, the ants found their courage, transforming themselves into an impressive army. The grasshoppers were tough fighters, but they were no match for these inventive circus tactics. Hopper realized he was losing the battle, so in a last-ditch effort, he grabbed Princess Ada and took her to a dam that the ants had built out of leaves. Red followed them in hot pursuit. "Stand back," Hopper cried, "or I'll burst the dam and flood the anthill." Red inched closer, and then Hopper, in a burst of malicious spite, stomped on the dam, causing it to rupture. Princess Ada managed to wriggle free, just as Hopper and Red tumbled into the rushing waters below. They fought amongst the waves, jumping onto leaves and twigs, kicking and clawing at one another, until they came up to a deadly waterfall. The ants and circus bugs formed a trapeze chain and caught Red just as he was about to go over the falls. Hopper wasn't so lucky, and he tumbled over the edge and vanished into the mists below. Nothing could stop the water from crashing into the anthill. The colony's home was washed away before their eyes, but at least everyone was safe. Further downstream, the bugs fished a battered hopper out of the water and locked him up in the Ant Queen's cage. The next morning, the ants immediately broke ground on a new anthill and retrieved their food from the grasshoppers' camp. They had plenty for the winter. The queen held a formal ceremony and proclaimed the circus bugs as honorary ants. Princess Ada and Red then gave the colony a happy surprise by announcing their engagement. The ceremony concluded with a one-gun salute as Hopper was shot out of the circus cannon high into the air, far off beyond the horizon, and was never heard from again.